be here in a moment. Keep working on the cars, guys. So the entire workshop walked, and this fellow whose name is Gary Wilcox, who some of you have met, made a decision there and then that he would do something, in his words, to make a difference in the workplace. So Monit was created. I got involved because I was asked to get involved. I basically retired out of the printing industry and thought this is something that's quite unique. And the reason it's unique is because it's simple. And everybody I spoke to said workplace health and safety is not simple, it's complicated. So we set about to change the culture in workplaces. 15 years down the track, we're now in 165 different industries in 2 countries. So the process works, and it works very well. The reason we got involved in the golf industry is because I'm a nut. I drive around with golf clubs in the boot of the car just in case I go past a golf club. And I chose South Australia as a starting point because my family is here. We have a holiday house down at Alex Beach, so we're here 25 or 30 times a year. But what really impressed me is what this man over here has been doing. And I think you guys are so far ahead of the game in terms of Australia-wide and what's happening that I chose to put my voice behind Golf SA and consequently have sponsored an OHS award, WHS in this state, for the last 5 years. One of the first clubs that I got involved with was Kooyonga, and one of the first series of really difficult questions that came my way came from one Adrian Edgar, who's been referred to today, to the point where I would go to my guys, one of whom helps write legislation, 7 years he's done this behind the scenes with WorkSafe Victoria, and I go, Cole, I've got a question for you. After the 3rd time I said that, he went, did that come from that fellow in South Australia again? Oh, yeah, that's right. So Adrian kept us on our mantle, and I'm pretty proud to say now that we look after about a dozen golf clubs in this state, and we've got about 60 or so, I think, Australia-wide. The difference between golf and any other industry is that there are idiosyncrasies. And I don't know, can I ask the question, has anybody here been visited in their capacity within their golf club by a Safe Work SA inspector? Yeah? Okay. Long ago? 18 months. Issued you with a couple of to-dos, improvement notices?
Yes.
Okay. Many?
No.
Okay. Complicated to do? Cost money to do? Okay. They're very proactive. They want to be proactive because, like you, they want people to be safe in the workplace. And unfortunately, we see the worst case scenarios out there because we do see the deaths. Not when they occur, but we see the resultant trauma that occurs in a workplace as a result of a death. A safe work inspector in this town can turn up at any time. I'm sure you realise that. They don't need an invitation like the taxman generally needs. They don't need a warrant like the police generally need. They can turn up, they can identify themselves, and if they feel that the environment is bad enough, they can close the front door there and then, and they can have the police enforce it. So it does come under the criminal code of practice, which is fairly serious. What I thought I'd do is, I'm not allowed to imitate a safe work inspector, but in the last 6 months I've followed 9. One of them here, 5 in Victoria and 3 over other states. So I get a pretty fair idea what they're going to do when they get out there and the sort of things they're going to ask. So I've put together a series of questions because this is what they can do to you. Question 1, he's turned up on site. He's talking to either the general manager or what the authorities refer to as the PCBU. Has anybody heard that terminology? The PCBU means the person conducting the business or undertaking. So in other words, the buck stops with that person, okay? The PCBU. By law, he talks to that person or a representative of the club. Question 1, can I have a look at the minutes from the last 3 WHS meetings, please? Signed by all those workers who attended. Yes or no? I can't see your material safety data sheets. Are they all up to date? Not older than 5 years, and have all workers been trained in how to read them? Do you have safe operating procedures in place for your plant and equipment? He's only been here for 30 seconds. I see a worker operating a backhoe over there. Can you show me proof of his competence to do so and the training routine that he followed? I see a contractor servicing the air conditioning unit on the office roof. Has he signed in, provided you with the job safety analysis and proof of his public liability insurance? Your chemical storage shed, is it funded, vented, and do you have a dangerous goods and a hazardous chemical register in place? Can I see the staff induction booklet? All workers signed prior to commencing work, please. And does that include all your volunteers? I see a young guy working over there. Can you show me the bullying and social media policy that he signed? Do you have a formal approach to addressing your mandatory legal workplace health and safety obligations? He's only been here for 5 minutes. So the answer to no with those questions would result in, our opinion, the issue of about 35 improvement notices and possibly a prohibition notice. That guy can't work on the air conditioning unit until such time as he supplies that. If you don't have some of those things in place, the liability falls on you. So the contractor who is servicing that air conditioning unit on the roof, if he falls off and breaks his neck and you don't have a set of contractor critical safety rules that he's signed off or a job safety analysis that he's provided you, you're liable. Your club is liable. Your club is liable financially. And if when they start to pursue the club and look at what's going on, they believe that the club can't pay the fines or the associated legal bills, they'll go after you as individuals. So if Kerry Packer was on your board, God bless him, they'd go after him. They'd fine him. They'd make him pay the fine, as far as putting a lien, caveat on his personal property until such time as the fine's paid. That's as bad as it gets. That really is as bad as it gets. Now, we heard all of that 15 years ago and we went, this is impossible. An SME, a small business enterprise, can't possibly address what they need to address without help. And the people that were there helping at the time were the consultants that were charging people $1,500 a day plus GST. That's too much. You can't do that. So what happens? You do nothing. Well, that doesn't cut it with his honour or her honour in the district court in South Australia. If you're doing nothing, that's tantamount to look out. So Monit was created 15 years ago. We kept it very simple, and the reason we kept it simple is because you people here are time poor and you're monetary poor. You don't have the capacity of being able to write out a cheque tomorrow morning for ad infinitum dollars. So let's present something that enables you to be able to address your mandatory legal obligations, but do so efficiently and do so cost effectively. Because underlying all of this, you want everybody to go home, don't you? That's the bottom line. You want everybody to be safe. But there are processes and procedures in place that you need to follow. So what Monit brings to the table, and a whole bunch of other associated things that I'll talk about in a sec, is it brings the ability for you to be able to demonstrate an audit trail, that you are doing the things that you need to do to satisfy the legislation. Because remember, it comes under the criminal code of practice. So the worst case scenario, if you get this really wrong, you go to jail. There's no other way of saying it. That's not fear-mongering, that's the reality of what this is all about. And the authorities are becoming more and more determined to ensure that you people do address your mandatory legal obligations, because, regrettably, the statistics that come back to us are 75% of SMEs out there don't do a thing. That's scary. So there's 1.7 million SMEs in Australia. One of them is McDonald's. McDonald's has 1,300 outlets. So how many of that 1.7 actually relate to individual outlets and then think 75% of those aren't doing what they should be doing? That's scary. That is really scary. Monit should be the Google of workplace health and safety in the world, seriously. We haven't even started the journey because what we want to do is make it simple but effective. We want to make it so that you people Don't spend the rest of your lives worrying about workplace health and safety. But what you do is you get in, you get out, you move on to the job that you are there to do. There's a little video that will explain how we interact with you guys.
Workplace health and safety is a mandatory legal requirement for every business in Australia, irrespective of whether you are a sole trader, subcontractor, franchisee, or you use voluntary workers. Sticking your head in the sand and ignoring it will only serve to put you in a worse position with the authorities. In recent years, average fines handed down by courts have doubled, and in some cases, a jail sentence has been imposed. Nowhere is the saying, "It's better to be safe than sorry," more relevant than in health and safety matters. From a strictly financial perspective, by the time you add your increased work cover premiums, as well as lost production and disruptions to your business, avoiding accidents makes good financial sense. That's why we believe it's better to put a fence at the top of the cliff than an ambulance and police force down below. Although this is a simple fence, it is the only workplace health and safety service that has received an Australian Innovation Patent. The best way to describe how this service works is to picture an iceberg where 10% of it is above the water and the other 90% is hidden below. Your support team works with you from behind the scenes and makes up about 90% of your workplace health and safety activity. The other 10% is you doing what we send to you each month. We know you do. The first thing we do is analyse the industry you're in by drawing on expertise from many different sources, including state and federal legislation, as well as industry standards and procedures. This process is overseen by a panel of qualified workplace health and safety professionals. This consultation process creates what we refer to as an ideal workplace health and safety template for your industry. Our task is now to help your business reach and maintain this ideal template, so you are allocated a support representative who works with you from behind the scenes. All businesses carry unnecessary health and safety risks that need to be removed. So the first thing we establish is the percentage of unnecessary risk your business is currently carrying. Together with your support rep, you slowly remove these risks and in turn move your business closer to your industry's ideal template. Each month, your support rep sends you out by email a short list of tasks your business needs to complete. Print off what you are sent and using a pen, write down on the form what you did. These forms play a significant role in providing the necessary evidence your company has a dynamic health and safety policy in place. And if you are an average business, these activities will take no more than 20 minutes per month. You now return these completed forms to your support rep. They look at what you have done so far and get ready what you need to do next month. This monthly cycle will continue in order for your business to meet the legal requirements of having a dynamic workplace health and safety policy in place. This activity will also continue to reduce your unnecessary risk percentage. The law states your business must prove it is communicating health and safety matters effectively enough that all workers fully understand them. Because of this, we use what you return each month to service you on two levels. The first level is your workplace health and safety management system, where your support rep does all the data entry for you. Your management system helps protect you against most low-level exposure, such as an unexpected visit from an inspector. However, a major incident at your workplace will trigger an investigation by different inspectors with different attitudes. This is where your second level of support is important to protect you against litigation. To achieve this, we retain all signed forms returned from workers as evidence they fully understand your company's health and safety policies. Do-it-yourself software products that produce reports or digital signatures do very little in convincing a court a worker fully understands your company's health and safety policies. However, a worker's handwriting and signature on one of those forms does. If at any time during this monthly cycle you appear to be falling behind or struggling to complete a task, your support rep will contact you and offer assistance. Now, just in case something falls through the cracks, you also have access to an insurance policy which covers the legal entity, all directors, all workers and even subcontractors against workplace health and safety legal fees, and yes, even fines. From monthly to-do tasks, multi-layer support, ongoing professional service and an insurance policy covering statutory fines, we remove all your workplace health and safety worries. If only everything in business was as clear and simple as this.
So what we've done behind the scenes is we've created this checklist that is specific to golf. When we started in golf, thanks to the major clubs like here, Royal Adelaide, Grange, Kionga, we were able to develop the checklist as we refer to it. In those cases, the checklist fell into two components, one for the clubhouse and the pro shop and surrounds, and one for the golf course, because there are different risks. Working with Chris over a number of years, what we've come up with now is we've come up with a combination of for the smaller clubs, because you might not have a kitchen with a fryer. You might be selling packet sandwiches or bottled beer, for example. So we've come up with this approach to enable you, in your situations, to be able to address the requirements that you have. Really important that you understand the role of volunteers. I totally understand that smaller clubs can't work without volunteers. But the authorities expect you to address those volunteers in exactly the same way as you address the general manager or the superintendent. There's no differentiation. When they're on your site, it is irrelevant whether you're paying them or not. If you're giving little Johnny a free hamburger on Friday because he is able to do a task, you've got to be able to demonstrate that he's doing that task and he's proficient at doing the task. You can no longer refer to as what's called in the cycles RPL, refer to prior learning. You can't do that anymore. He's out there driving a tractor because he's been doing it for 60 years of his life. No. Prove that he's competent to do it today. Prove that he's signed off a safe operating procedure and that he does know how to operate that particular device. Because he might be suffering from dementia for it, you know. The fact that he's been doing that task for 60 years is irrelevant. And if you do get to court, the judge wants to see little Johnny's signature on a piece of paper. So that opened up this whole other thing. And I needed help. We decided, I was referring people. For years and years I was referring people. We need signage, okay, we're going to talk to these people. We need a traffic management plan, okay, go talk to these people. And too many times those people didn't respond the way that we expected people to respond. So we brought everything in-house now. We've got Monit and we've got what we refer to under the umbrella of what's called Monit Plus. So under Monit Plus we can supply absolutely everything that you need. We've got all sorts of access to counsellors. Unfortunately, we've had to use trauma counsellors twice in our life. Don't know if you saw in the news, maybe 4 weeks ago, outside of Melbourne Golf Club called Eagle Ridge down on the Bellarine Peninsula, there was a death. A young girl from a wedding was killed as she was walking home to the accommodation down the road, hit by a car, killed. I got a phone call 6:30 the next morning from the general manager of the golf club saying, this is what's happened, what's our liability? And I went, okay, let's ask a few questions. Was everybody serving alcohol? Did they have their RSA certificates? Yes, they did. Okay. The accident occurred outside the golf club, so as we processed through the whole scenario, there was no liability for the golf club. But guess what? All the kids that were there that night were stressed to the max, because they'd all been dealing with this young girl during the course of the evening. So what we jointly decided is a good approach to this is that we should get some trauma counsellors in for these people. That happened at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. They went through the process. Those trauma counsellors have been back in touch with the staff of the golf club 3 times since that event. That's a long bow, but that comes under your workplace health and safety, because if the kids are traumatised, then the resultant fallout from that can be quite significant to the club and the financial well-being of the club. So they're working their way through. That unfortunately is the worst case scenario that we come across, and we've had 2 deaths around us. Apart from that, we've actually had 2 deaths in workplaces. But I've got to tell you, people don't get over it. Real estate agents, they leave because they can't bear to see Mary's chair over there because Mary was killed out on the job. We don't want that to happen. I don't want to dramatise the whole thing, but you know, this is what we see. This is the worst case scenario. We don't want you people to be in that worst case scenario. We referred to in that video to the fact that you can take out insurance. I want you to write this down because this is really, really important. Does your club have statutory liability insurance in place? Okay? You might have directors and officers liability, you might have management liability, but do you have statutory liability? You must see those words on the policy. If you do, that will cover you against fines from Safe Work SA, because the policy will pay those fines. It will also cover you for legal fees. So if you had a situation where there was a bullying scenario going on, we've got one of those in an automotive workshop in Queensland behind us at the moment, where two guys are in court for sexual harassment. Okay, that's the world we live in. The business is able to call on top legal representations under their policy to protect their business. Okay. If you don't, the outcome is diabolical. There's a one-man farmer in Bacchus Marsh in Melbourne who's currently written out cheques for legal fees and fines for a death on his property for nearly $750,000. He's not been able to retain the farm. He's had to sell the farm, fourth generation farm. We look after him now. We didn't at the time that happened. Again, I'm sorry, that's the worst case scenario, but things like that can happen. People bang into each other out on the roads out there and they don't leave home and go, I want to bang into somebody. It's an accident. And what you've got to do is to be able to show in the event of that there is disordered trail in place. That's what we do. The offer that's on the table, thanks to Golf SA and Monit, $99 a month is all we ask. There's some other things that we can bring to the equation down the track if you want, like safe operating procedures. I might just throw these around, pass this around. Just have a look. If you haven't seen what a safe operating procedure is, that's an example. I needed help to do that, so I brought this man along, Ian Lawson. Ian's been involved in the golf industry for a gazillion years, has worked at Royal Melbourne and currently works at Royal Adelaide, where he's cutting back to a part-time position. Ian is the primary person as to why I created safe operating procedures, because he was the OH&S rep for Royal Adelaide for many years. And as we started to talk, and I bounced ideas off him and I bounced ideas off Adrian, and I also bounced ideas off Paul, who was general manager in Club in Melbourne. As we started to develop, we could see that what was out in the marketplace just wasn't going to work. The first safe operating procedure, SOP, that Ian and I looked at was 15 pages long. How is anybody ever going to get through that? That's an operational manual, not a safe operating procedure. So with Ian's help, we've designed, I don't know how many we've got, dozens and dozens and dozens of SOPs that will relate to every piece of equipment. Why do you need that? Because if there's an incident or an accident, the investigating safe work inspector will say, is there a safe operating procedure in place? Is little Johnny competent to operate that piece of machinery? Can you prove that? What's the training routine that you guys follow in your club? And lastly, is that piece of equipment being maintained as per manufacturer's specifications? If you can go yes, 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 you've mitigated your exposure to that liability significantly. If you go no, 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 then it's the discretion of the inspector as to what he does next. I'll dispel one myth, and I asked the question as to whether inspectors have been on site for a reason. Often, in the last 15 years, I've been in the businesses where they've said, no, we don't need you guys. We had an inspector in here, he picked out 2 or 3 things, and we fixed them, so we're okay. No. No. If you finish up in court, there is no way in the world a Safe Work SA inspector is going to stand next to you and say, I reckon that golf club is honky-dory. Ain't going to happen. What is going to happen is the judge is going to ask for an audit trail. He's going to ask for proof that there's a dynamic communication between management and worker, that you do have your meetings, that they sign off these toolbox meetings, whatever you want to call them. Keep it simple. You don't have to have projectors and complicate. A toolbox meeting can be a discussion standing around the tractor on Monday morning at 8 o'clock. It can be as simple as that, so long as it's signed off. They're the things that we direct you to do. So go back to those 10 questions that I threw out. Don't get worried about that. We'll work you through that. It's a journey. You're not going to get there at 9 o'clock in the morning after you start. It is not going to happen. It is a journey, and it's a journey for 2 reasons. Number 1, legislation changes. There were 17 changes to dangerous goods and hazardous legislation last year, at the end of last year. So we changed our questions in our system to reflect those changes. Secondly, people around you change. Harry, who's the volunteer, is no longer, and Bill's coming. Bill doesn't want to listen to this. Bill's older than me, and Bill says, I've been driving this tractor for 60 years, or I've been using a chainsaw for 60 years. Sorry, Bill, the world has changed. So in the last 2 weeks alone, I've sat in front of 65 volunteers at 2 different golf clubs in Melbourne. And I said, guys, this is the reality of where that. Don't blame the messenger, don't blame the golf club, but we have to put certain processes and criteria in place to protect the golf club. Because if we don't, then you won't have a golf club. You just won't have a golf club. So we're working with the golf club. Please, you work with us. Once that's explained to your volunteers, that's fine. If I'm not here to do that, because I don't live in South Australia, but I might as well, Ian is here. And that's the reason I've got Ian involved. Because there's nobody that knows this golf industry better than what he does. There's nobody that understands the OH&S, WHS component and what's required better than what he does. He's worked at the top end of the marketplace and the bottom end of the marketplace. Okay? We can't be everywhere for $99 a month. We just can't. But I've put my lot in here to South Australia, as I said earlier. I reckon you guys are ahead of the game by a mile compared to the rest of Australia. So I'd like to see us elevate the number of Monit customers that are here. That's the reason that Golf SA has put on the table what they've put on the table, and Monit's put on the table what we've put on the table. So you get 6 months for free. We start, and away we go. And then if you want extra bits, you can have the extra bits down the track. Hello.
Hello. Do you travel?
Yep. I'm here.
You can come to our club in South Australia.
Where are you?
Bordertown.
I go through Bordertown to drive to Adelaide 30 times a year.
Right.
I stay at the Bordertown motel when I do.
Come stay at our place.
Yes, I do.
So you travel and then you can actually visit our workplace and our machinery shed and look at all.
Yeah, I can do all that. Normally we charge for doing that. We normally charge $500 for doing that.
Okay. So
Because but today, the clubs that are here, I think I'm driving to Adelaide. No, I'm going to Riverland next on the 15th of May. Long weekend. What's it called? Seeing Vines. Long weekend. I'm here.
what date is that?
That's the long weekend in June. Yeah.
Oh, I've got the number.
So I'll be in Bordertown the Thursday before that long weekend. But you've got to sign up to get the deal. You've got 28 days to do that. And then I'll come out on site and do that for free. Monday the 15th in the Riverland. Gentlemen? That's Monday the 30th, is it? Okay. Does that all make sense? So what we're really trying to do here is, it is a complicated environment. We don't have any question about that. If you can be bothered, there's hundreds of pages of legislation. I've read it twice. I've got no idea why I read it the second time. But we've got experts who look at that and vet that. And unfortunately, the authorities in this space are the same as the taxman. You have to find the answer. They don't come and tell you what it is. So if you haven't found the answer and then something happened, that's your problem. You're already gone. Does that make sense? So we find the answers for you. We just keep you on track. And as I said, you're not going to get there at 9 o'clock on the day after you start. You get 5 questions a month. There's hundreds of questions that will come to you over a period of time. But Your Honour, we've started the process. We've got a dynamic approach to what we're doing here. We're communicating all of this with our workers, whether they be full-time, casual, part-time, volunteers is irrelevant. And that will seriously mitigate your exposure to risk. We will offer you the statutory liability insurance at some point, but your own broker should be doing that if they're on the money now, in my opinion. Okay. Any other questions? Chris said I could stay here till 6 o'clock, but I don't need to, Chris.